Okay. Good evening, everybody. We're holding today's Amud is Davav Amud Aleph, and we're still at the bottom of Hey Amud Beis. We're up to the new Mishnah. The new Mishnah Daf Hey Amud Beis. So today's Amud is really a short Amud, and it's quite a simple Amud as far as that's why I'm going slower. No, it's quite a simple Amud as far as the basic pshat, the Ba'emes with regards to. Even with the basic pshat, there's a lot of discussions among the Rishonim exactly how. I'll try and explain it. Whenever there's an issue which needs explaining, to explain it at least according to Rashi, according to give a pshat. Even where there's different ways of learning the Gemara, at least give one clear pshat in going forward. Okay, so let's see the Mishnah. The Mishnah is going to talk about a whole bunch of things. The pasuk says al pishnaim edim oy shloisha edim yumas hameis. So there's two psukim actually which say al pishnaim edim al pishloisha edim. The edus is with 2 or 3 people. So the obvious question is, why do you need to tell me 3 edim? If 2 edim is good enough, so for sure 3 edim is good. So so there's a whole bunch of dinim. There's about 4 different dinim which we learn in this Mishnah, which is learned out of the pasuk which says al pishnayim edim oy shloisha edim. The fact that the Torah felt it necessary to say that not only al pishnayim edim yumas hameis, but also shloisha edim, which is superfluous, it's extra. If 2 edim are good enough to kill somebody, 2 edim come and say someone's chayiv, it's good enough. What's 3 gonna help? Why does the Torah need to tell 3? So there's a whole bunch of dinim we learn from this. So let's see the Mishnah inside. Al pishnayim edim oy shloisha edim yumas hameis. The pasuk says that by the mouth, by the word of 2 edim or 3 edim, the person will be killed. So the Mishnah asks a kasha. If the edus is good with 2, then why does the person need to tell me the 3 is also good? The Torah is comparing 3 to 2 in a number of ways. Number 1, just like Bisvara, it's obvious that 3 people can be mazim 2. Because 3 is more than 2. So if you have 2 Eidim being made and 3 other Eidim coming and saying Imona Yisim about those 2 Eidim, for sure you're going to believe the 3 over the 2. Compare 2 to 3. They're just like 2 can be Huzam, so through the 3, so too the 3 can be Muslim through the 2. Even though the Chura, we might think 2 Eidim is weaker than 3. How can 2 Eidim be Mazim 3? No. Al Pishnayim Eidim Shloisha Eidim tells me we Makkos Shloisha to Shnayim. Just like Shnayim can be Huzam, so too shloisha can be hozam as well, even if you only have 2 being mazim. You only have 2 saying imona yisrael. How do you know that even if you have 2 edim being mazim 100 edim, that it also works? Tamaloma edim. The pasuk could have just said al pishnayim or shloisha edim. Why does it say edim? The extra word edim tells me that it doesn't matter however many edim. Shnayim kameya. Once you have 2 edim, shnayim is kameya, and 2 edim can be mazim 100. That is one din the Tanakama learns out of the Mishnah. Reb Shimon says a different din can be learned out of the Mishnah. However many Eidim there are. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly the exact limit. I hear your question. Exactly how the Eidim works. I could have said Yumas Hameis. The fact it says Apishnayim Eidim Shloisha Eidim tells me it's a riboy. However many Eidim there are, even a million Eidim, right, is considered like 2, and 2 Eidim can be mazim. That's one limit that we learn from the pasuk Apishnayim Eidim Shloisha Eidim. Reb Shimon says a different limit. Reb Shimon oimer ma shnayim einon neragin ad shiu shneim zaymin. We know the din. We mentioned it before, but Reb Shimon is saying it clearly over here. The ma shnayim einon neragin ad shiu shneim zaymin af shloisha einon neragin ad shiu shloshton zaymin. This is a chiddush already, right? Really, an edus is 2. So I might think, for whatever reason, we know that for whatever reason there's a din that in order for Eidim Zomim to be Zomim, in order for Eidim Zomim to be punished with the Kasha Zomam, they both need to be found Zomim. In other words, if 2 Eidim come and say about one of the Eidim on a Yisim, Ataka would be Mavatal Eidus, there's no more Eidus anymore, because you only have one Eid which is Kayam, but the Eid which became Zomim won't get punished. Won't get the Kasha Zomam punishment unless both Eidim are found to be Zomim. Comes along with Shimon and says it's not only Shnayim, it's even Af Shloisha Einaragim. That even if you have a set of 3, or right, however big the set is, even if you have a set of 3 where the extra 8 is unnecessary, making 2 of them Zomim is not good enough. They're not going to get punished until the 3rd one is also found to be Zomim. The 3rd one was also said to be Imonu Hayis. Right? So that's what Shimon name. Shimon name Mashnaim Einaragim Ashi Shneim Zomim. Just like by 2, you both need to be Zomim in order to get punished. So 2 with 3 Eidim who come as a set, they don't get killed until all 3 are found to be Eidim Zayim. Again, the Gemara says, how do I know that it applies to however big the set is, even 100, even 1,000? Eidim. The word Eidim tells me that as big a set as it is, it becomes one set, and the 100 people come together and say that Reuven killed Shimon, they're not going to get the kasha zom, and they're not going to get killed if they're found zomim unless every single one of them is found zomim. That's number two. What? Oh, so the question is whether Tanakama argues with Rav Shimon or not. It's not necessary. And most Rishonim learn, by the way, and I was going to say this later, but I'll say it now. Most Rishonim learn that there's no machlokes in Tanakama, Rav Shimon, Rabbi Akiva. Mashmos dorish nikabinai. In other words, they're arguing about what the pasuk is coming to tell me, but they're not arguing in din. All the dinim are kaim according to all the Mishnah. There's no machlokes until the end of the Mishnah. But at this stage of the Mishnah, there's no machlokes with regards to. There is a Tosfos, a rivah, brought down in Tosfos and Sanhedrin, which say that that according to Tanakama. Or according to Rabbi Akiva, even I'll soon see Rabbi Akiva argues that Rabbi Akiva wouldn't agree with Rabbi Shimon. But for Pashtos, Rashi writes clearly, as we'll soon see, that there's no machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shimon. Even Rabbi Akiva, who comes down, kind of seems to argue. He's only arguing about what the pasuk's telling me, but he's not arguing about the actual din. Let's see. So Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Akiva says, "Lo yibash dishi lahakel elo lahachmir alav." Rabbi Akiva says, we'll see Pshat exactly in Rashi, but let's just translate it for the moment. Rabbi Akiva says, "Lo yibash dishi lahakel elo lahachmir alav." The third aid is not coming to make things easier. In other words, that the reason why the pasuk says al pi shnayim edim or shloisha edim is not to tell you that there's some sort of leniency over here, that the edim zayim don't become zayim until you have all three zayim or anything like that. Elo lahachmir alav. Rather, the chiddush of the pasuk is to tell me that there's a chumrah in there being a third aid. What's the chumrah? Velas is dinu kayotze be'ela. To make the third guy's din kayotze be'ela. What's he saying over here? Very simple. In order for an aidus to be kaim, you only really need two aidim. So the third aid, kutaina, I came later. The third aid, in other words, the person who says his aidus last, could say I was extra. I didn't need to say anything. The aidus would have been kaim without me. So even though I'm also found to be zayim, but I shouldn't get punished. Because the kasher zamam would have happened, right? The plotting, the getting the nidin in trouble would have been done with the two without me. So we say no. Even though he wasn't really necessary for the eidos, the third aid also gets kasher zamam when he's found to be zayim b'manayis. The imkain ona shakas of the nitpalo. And what's the lesson of the Torah telling me? The Torah is telling me a lesson, by the way, that if the Torah was punishing someone who's nitfal over Aveir, someone who's just, by the way, he's helping out the over Aveir, is not really necessary for the Aveir to happen because the two Adam alone would be able to get the Nidin in trouble. He's just an extra leg. He's a third wheel. So the last is dinner kayotze bei. Came the honest because the nitfal over Aveir kover achas kama v'kama yishalim sachal and nitfal lo say mitzvah koyse mitzvah. If somebody helps a mitzvah, even if it's not absolutely necessary for the mitzvah, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives schar. And Rashi explains that it's a kal v'chomer. We know there's a kal v'chomer. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when it comes to schar, gives schar even more than oynish. If we see in a certain situation where the person is helping out in Aveir, there's oynish for sure. If someone's helping out in mitzvah, alakas kama v'kama, he'll get schar, even though he's not absolutely necessary for the mitzvah. That is the third thing that we learn from Shnayim Shloisha, the fact that the Torah says Shloisha Eidim. And finally, a fourth thing, just like it's obvious that if you have two Eidim, right, where you need each and every aid, and one of the Eidim is a apostle aid, it's not going to be good. You only have one kosher aid. So just like when you have two, it's where it's obvious where if one of them is a karev or apostle eidus and betela, the eidus goes out of the window, the eidus is disqualified. So therefore, we learn also that even by three eidim, where you have two eidim, you have two kosher eidim, but if the third aid is part of the set, and he's found to be karev apostle, the whole eidus is bottled, despite the fact that you have two without him. I mean, how do you know that even if you have a set of 100 and one of them is a karev apostle, that the whole eidus gets disqualified? Talmud loyma eidim, the pasuk says eidim, so that teaches me that however many eidim there are, they need to all be kosher eidim, and even if one of them is apostle, it disqualifies the entire eidus, despite the fact that you have two kosher eidim without them. That is what Rabbi Akiva, the passage is what Rabbi Akiva is saying. It's different. There's discussions whether this is a hemshech, is Rabbi Akiva talking or not, but let's just assume this is Rabbi Akiva talking. Rabbi Yossi qualifies the din of Rabbi Akiva and says, not always. Rabbi Yossi says there's a big difference in din in nefashos and din in mominus. Rashi will explain why. That by din in nefashos, taka, if you have 100 edim and one of them's a car, the whole edus is bottled, because Rashi explains also we're looking for ways to get the nidin off the hook. We're trying to, we don't kill people so easily, so therefore even if there's one who's car of apostle, we're going to make him we disqualify the whole edus. But din in this guy made it. By din in we don't care. By din in you have three edim and one of them is car of apostle. You have two kosher edim, so the two edim say Reuven Chayiv Shimon money. I don't care if the shlishi is car of apostle. That is the shit of Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi argues Rabbi Oimer, Echad din imam is Echad din nefashas. Rabbi argues with the Atzam din of Rabbi Yossi. There's a difference between din imam and din nefashas. He says no, that doesn't make a difference. Whether there's din imam is whether din nefashas. If one of them is karev apostle, even if he's not needed for the edus, because you have 10 edim, you have 3 edim, whatever it is, and only right, so you have 2 kosher edim without this karev apostle, doesn't make a difference whether it's din imam or din nefashas. But Rabbi still makes a distinction. Rabbi makes a distinction not between din imam and din nefashas, but whether they had kavanah to be made or not. The Amosai. When do we say that edim? When do we say that edim are, if one of them is found to be karev apostle, it disqualifies the whole edus? Bizman shehisru ben. When we know that the edim are niskavnu lahayid, we know the edim's testimony. Edim, when they were seeing the Maisa, they warned him. They warned the nidain that if you do kach v'kach, you're going to be chai malchus, you're going to be chai misa. So then bizman shehisru ben, then we know that they're edim. And then if nimsa echem em karev apostle edus is batal, bizman sheloi hisru ben. However, if the Edom were just sitting there and they saw Reuven kill Shimon, what are you going to do? The 2 brothers saw somebody killing somebody, right? You have 2 brothers and you have another aide. So if one of the brothers didn't intend to be an aide, well, you're going to disqualify the aide just because he's present. So therefore, we say that he needs to be nikar that the Edom. How is it nikar that they're Edom? Is man shahisru b'hen. Now that's lechura only in cases where there's hasra, like in the nefashas, right? In imamness, there's no muslik of hasra, so there's going to be, we'll see in the Gemara that there's other ways of determining whether the edim are niskavnu lahayid or not. But akopanim, this is what the Mishnah says over here. So lechura, I just want to say one point that although most Rishonim learn there's no Makkos in the Tanakama, Reb Shimon, Reb Akiva, they all agree to each other's dinim that you need that Shnaim can be mazim shloisha. And that the third one gets punished despite him being not necessary for the eidos if he's found to be Edom Zayim and Nimsa Echem and Karev Apostle. But there's a machlokes between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi about when Nimsa Echem and Karev Apostle applies, and there's a kula chomer in each one. In other words, Rabbi Yossi says that it doesn't make a difference whether niskav the pashtus, and definitely in the Gemara's Havamina, this is how the Gemara understands the machlokes between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi, at least according to Rashi. So we'll explain it this way just so we can understand the Gemara. According to Rabbi Yossi, there's no difference between whether the Edom warned the guy or not. Whether if the Edom see it, if it's din in a fasha, so then they're considered Edom and nimsa echem and karev apostle Edom is bottom. By din imaminus, this guy made his b'shar. The only distinction is whether it's din in a fasha or din imaminus. Rabbi says there's no difference between din imaminus and din in a fasha. So that's the chumrah, if you want to call it that. But on the other hand, it has to be niskavnu lahayid. If they're not niskavnu lahayid, it doesn't make a difference whether it's din imaminus, din in a fasha. Then if they didn't warn, if we don't, or we otherwise know that they're not there in order to testify about the story. So then, we don't say the nimsa echem and karev apostle edus is. Okay, that's the Mishnah. Let's see Rashi inside. But back at the beginning of the Mishnah, and the previous level we mentioned earlier, like we explained earlier, Rashi explained earlier, this thing. So you see clearly over here, the Rashi learning, Rabbi Kiva, when he says loy ba'ela, isn't coming to argue on Rabbi Shimon, like some Rishonim learn, but rather Rabbi Kiva is just saying, shat in the pasuk, he's arguing about what the pasuk is coming here to teach me, but he agrees to the atzam din of Rabbi Shimon that you need, all 3 need to be found zaymim in order to be punished. Rabbi Kiva, let's see Rashi inside. Rabbi Kiva, Rashi says he didn't need to. The pasuk doesn't need to teach us. The b'meila yodina, we automatically know. Sheshnai mazim ines shloisha. Sheshnai ksheim l'choledis. We know that 2 can be mazim shloisha because shnai makasha to any aid. We never say that. We know this din that two shnaim commits, 2 eidim have the strongest nemanos, and therefore, if they're 8 kasha to all eidos, why should they not be neman pleimana yisam? Even if they're coming to say that about 3 eidim. We also automatically know that all of them need to be found zayim. They're all together becoming eidim. In other words, he agrees to the above 2 mentioned in him, but the pasuk according to Rabbi Kiva, you don't need the pasuk for that. That would be understood anyway. So what's the pasuk shloisha edim coming to tell me? Why does the pasuk need to tell me 3 edim? According to Rabbi Kiva, it's coming to be machmir on the 3rd age. That a person shouldn't say that since without the 3rd guy, the edus would be kaim anyway, so he wasn't needed in order to cause problems, so therefore he shouldn't be punished for plotting to get the nidin in trouble. He's also he's considered, if he's part of the edus, he's considered a mekaymi davar, and he's going to be punished as an eid zayin. And then the Gemara, the Mishnah, by the way, says the point of Omala Oivri Aveiro Kavachoim Eloise Mitzvah. Lachas Kama Rashi Shesha Matzinu Mido Tovim Ruba Midas Koranus, as we know from Rashi Alatayr as well. that we find the midah tov is greater than midas piranus. The midah tov that HaKadosh Baruch Hu guards the chesed, oisa chesed. I think it says what it actually says in the passage. Oisa chesed lalofim, that he does chesed for thousands of generations, get rewarded because of the earlier tzidkus of the early generations. But midas piranus only goes 4 generations. So we know that midah tova is 500 times as many as big. So therefore, if there's a avera for the nitful avera, even if people are not necessary for that avera, but they're involved in that avera, so all the more so for oisei mitz. Then we get to nimsa acham and kar v'pasal leidusim b'teilon. So Rashi says, Rabbi Yossi says, they only apply to din in nefashos. Why? Why does it only apply to din in nefashos? The pasuk shnaim achi shnaim eid b'sheish is about everything. But Rashi, the way Rashi learns, is the ksivi tzilu ha'eda or madrin naschos. There's a svara that it should only apply to din in nefashos, because by din in nefashos it says the tzilu ha'eda, and we're looking for zechusim to save the defendant from Misa, to save the nidin from Misa. So if it's din in nefashos, then we say that even if nimsa acham and kar v'pasal leidusim b'teilon, but not by mominus. That is a shit of Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi says the difference is not between din in mominus and din in nefashos. There's no difference between din in mominus and din in nefashos. The only difference is whether they are kivnu lahayit. In the words of the Mishnah, when they warn the nidin. But when there's mansha hisru, when Rashi explained over din in nefashos, in the case of din in nefashos, kiyom rinam butler, when do we say it's bottled by din in nefashos? Is mansha kar v'apostle nishtatev ve'edus mitchil liyos min hamasim ba'ivraver. When the kar v'apostle was part of the edus to be, and how do you know he's part of the edus? Because he warned the oivaver. He was one of the edim who warned the oivaver by telling him that if you do kach v'kach, you're going to get punished. And Rashi adds, and they didn't have kavana to be Adam in this matter. The fact that they just happened to be present and see Reuven and kill Shimon, and there happened to be a car of apostle, that doesn't disqualify and validate the whole Eidos. The Ma Yasu Shnei Achin Sheroim Shlishim in Ashok Rashi explains the Mishnah when it says Ma Yasu Shnei Achin Sheroim B'Achshag Sanefesh, is talking about 2 brothers who saw with a third person. Right, so you have 2 kosher Eidim. One of the brothers can be mitzurif with the third person in Ashok. Right, so there's another one who's a brother. The 2 Eidim are brother. 2 out of the 3 Eidim are brothers to each other. We're going to disqualify it just because another brother was present there. Obviously, we can't disqualify every time there's 2 brothers who see something just because they happen to be present at the scene of the crime. Okay, so that is the Mishnah. You mean according to Rabbi? According to Rabbi, yeah. Right. So according to Taisus and many Rishonim, the Gemara later deals with this question. According to Rabbi Yossi, but in mominus, they were Huzam, part of the Bekiva. According to Rabbi Yossi, Nimsa Acham and Kar v'Apostle, is that's what they're talking? Not the third one, or yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Yeah. Thinking. Saying the Rabbi Yossi is only coming to talk about Nimsa Acham and Kar v'Apostle. Now you have to find out, the negeh to being huzam, whether they are considered one unit or not. So that's the Gemara deals with it. I don't think necessarily answers totally your question, but the Gemara straight away says, that when does this din apply? Even here the Rishonim argue about what Rav is talking about. But he's definitely talking about the case of when they, in order for them all to be Zayim, in other words, when we say there's 100 Eidim come to Bezdin, right? And they say Reuven killed Shimon, and then they were found to be, half of them, 50 of them, were found to be Zayim. So do we say that they're not Zayim because all 100? So Rav says that no, it depends. The Hushei, the Kulam Seik they did, but they have to all testify, they all have to, within Taich they did, in order for it to be considered one Eidus. And only then do we say that they all need to be Zayim, found Zayim in order to be punished. Straight away, the Gemara asks a question. I hope you will get back to your question. From Difti said to Rabbina, Mechti Toichtei Dibba Heichi Dami. What is Toichtei Dibba? What's the definition of Toichtei Dibba? So we all know. Kedei She'elas Talmud Rav. It's the amount of time it takes for a Talmud to ask to say Shalom Aleichem to Rav, either Shalom Aleichem Rabbi or Shalom Aleichem Rabbi V'Moiri. Right? It's 3 or 4 words. Meir Tuva Hava, the Gemara asks. How can you have 100 Eidim testify within this short amount of time? It's impossible. So Gemara explains and qualifies. It doesn't mean that all the Eidim have to testify within Toichtei Dibur, but rather each one has to start testifying Toichtei Dibur after the other one testified. Right? Amalei, he said back to him. Rabina said back to Rav Achim Midifti, Kol Chad v'Chad b'Soichtei Dibur shel Chaver. The pashtus from Rashi's mashma, by the way, that this din is applying to everything, not just to the din of actually you shloshten zaymim, right? That all the different people have to be found zaymim, but also been negated to nimsa acham and karve pasal. They also have to be made kulam sekir. That's just mashma from Rashi. Tosfos asks, and other Rishonim asks, and some Rishonim learn this din of Rav is only talking about the first din of the Mishnah of af shloisha ein rag and actually shlosh zaymin. They all need to be found zaymin. When do they all need to be found zaymin? Where it's one edus. What makes them one edus? Where they testify tochtei dibur of each other. Right. The third aid starts testifying tochtei dibur of the second aid. Then he's part of that set. But if he takes a long time and he doesn't start testifying till later, then it's considered a separate set. And he doesn't for the din of all being zaymin. Nimsa acham and karva apostle, some Rishonim doesn't make a difference. Even if it's not tochtei dibur, the edus is bottled, even if nimsa acham and karva apostle. But let's see Rashi. Rashi says, "V'hushi the kulam tochtei dibur. Hasam ka'amr masnis and meya kishnayim." Only then do we say, does the Mishnah say 100 is like 2 for the different dinim that the Mishnah say? Avalim yidu hashnayim, 2 edim meyed, or la'achaz mani yidu acherim, harihin kishtei kitas l'chol davar. However, if the 2 edim are made, and then only after a while the other edim are made, so then the kishtei kitas l'chol davar, and none of the dinim apply. That's what sounds like from Rashi. Okay, so that is the din of, that is the with regards to what makes them one set or not, with regard to them all needing to be zoymim and possibly also nimsa acham and karva pas. Now the Gemara is going to deal with the next din of the Mishnah, which really the dibur maslav is Rabbi Kiva oimer loy ba'shlishi or mashnayim b'chula, but really it's going on the hemshach amar Rabbi Yosi. Either it's supposed to say something different, or the chulu. It's going on the chulu, but it's going on Rabbi Yosi. At least according to Rashi. Rabbi Yosi says, "Bamed marmur bedin in the fashas al bedin imamnis sky made as b'shar," which and Rabbi Yosi doesn't hold of the distinction that Rabbi made. That when do we say nimsa acham and karva apostle? Only when the niskavnu lahai. Right? It sounds like Rabbi Yosi is learning that any time that someone's present by a scene of crime, by a scene of something going on, if he's a karva apostle, he invalidates the edus. So the Gemara is going to ask some very strong questions that you'll never ever find somebody be able to be killed. Why? Says the Gemara. Amri Papa Labaya. Did Rashi on the previous Gemara? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Amri Papa Labaya. Papa says Tabaya. Yeah. That if you're going to tell me, if you're going to go like Rabbi Yosi, that there's no distinction between miskavnu lahayid or not. Anyone who sees something is automatically an aid and nimsa acham and karpas eidusam taylor. Amir Papa Labai elamiata harug yatzel. Harug yatzel. The victim of the murder sees the murder taking place at the very. Well, it's an interesting situation because once the murder happens, he's dead. But I guess the act of murder he's present for. That's the Gemara's kasha. I'm not sure I fully understand it. But the act of murder, he's seeing the guy murder him. He's seeing it, and then before he knows he's dead, right? So, but he's present. He adam karvei tzalat. So just like his brother wouldn't be able to be made that somebody killed him, he can't be made either. And since he's present, so and he's an aid, he sees it happening. So eidusam b'teila. Amri problem by elamiata harug yatzal. And we know that's not true, right? The pasuk says clearly that when one person kills somebody else, there's certain instances at least where the Ritzeh gets killed. The question is, it can never get killed because there's always the Harog, who's a Karev Eitzel Atzmai, who's an aid. He's always seeing the murder. The person getting killed is seeing the murder happen, and therefore he's going to invalidate the aidus. So the Gemara first of all suggests an interesting akim to kishahogu machayra. In other words, you're right. If he doesn't know what's going on, he doesn't see it. What did he say? No, the Harog's not miskavnu lahayid. He's not being made. He's not warning the Hoyreg that right. According to the Rabbi, it's Amos Abis Mancha Hisrubain. The only time where Nimsach Mekarvin he's not pashas. He's not warning the Hoyreg. We're just asking Kasha, according to Rabbi Yosi, who doesn't make this distinction, the etzem fact that the Horog is there should be a problem. So the answer is, you're right, it is a problem. And the only time when a Hoyreg, where Ritzeach will get the death penalty, will be chayav hereg, is Kishahogim when he kills him from the back, that the person doesn't see it. Okay, the Gemara now asks nir bayatzel, when a person is had relations with somebody else, so the person who's being forced to have relations with pashtas, he should also be he should also, the fact that he's present should disqualify somebody from being punished, the Riveya from being punished. The Gemara is where he had relations backwards, then the person didn't see. Okay. Then the Gemara asks a stronger question. Okay, you've explained to me why the victim of the crime, the nerag or the nirva, can't be an aid. But the murderer or the rapist, he should be Yatzilu. He should be right. He's Karavet Salatzmai, so he should save himself. He's there. He's seeing himself do the act. Ishtik. So Abai didn't have anything to say to that. He couldn't find in a Kimta where it would explain why that's okay, why that's not considered Nimsa Acham and Karav Apostle according to Rabbi Yossi. So the Gemara answers Kiyasa Rakami the Rava. When this question came in front of Rava, Amalei said in the following answer: Yokum Dava. The Apostle Al Pishnaim Edom Shleisha Yokum Dava. And from there we learn that Nimsa Acham and Karav Apostle. It doesn't matter how many Edom are there, even those which are extra than two are in Nimsa Acham and Karav Apostle Eidusim Betela. So the pasuk says Yokum Davar. So we learn from them in Mekayim Davar Kasma Davar. The pasuk is only talking about those people who are coming to Mekayim Davar. In other words, those people who are seeing the story happen, but not Ba'oisei Davar, not those people who are involved in the actual story. The actors in the crime, either the Hoyreg or the Nerag, the murderer or the victim, they're not part of the Chashman. And even though they're automatically a Karav apostle to themselves, that doesn't disqualify the Eidos, because the pasuk that we learn from is from Yokum Davar, from Mekayim Davar Kasma Davar. Let's see Rashi. Rashi says, Harug Yatzel, the Rabbi Yossi, right? This is how Rashi learns the Gemara. The Rabbi Yossi, according to Rabbi Yossi, the Omer Afaloi Hisru, who says that even if they don't warn, even if the Edom are just present, they don't show, they're not Megala Dat, they're not Megala to us that they want to be Edom by warning the Nidain. Afaloi Hisru, Shaloi Niskavan Lahai, that they don't have intention to be made. Who Matzeles Anidan Rene Kurva, nevertheless, he's going to save the Nidain because of Kurva. So therefore, Harug Nami Yatzeles Anidan. The victim of the crime, the person who's being killed, should save the nidin. He saw the crime, and he's a karvetz lasma. Just like if his brother was one of the Edom, he wouldn't be able to be an aid. So too, the victim himself can't be an aid. So the Gemara answers, it's a bigger kimta. Now, all the psukim which say that a ritzech will kill somebody, Misa is only talking about where the victim Taka doesn't see the crime, because he killed him from behind. But if Taka faces him while he's killing him and the victim sees him, so Taka won't be a situation of, it would be Nimsacham and Karav Apostle, and the Eidos would Taka be Bak. That's what the Gemara originally answers. The Gemara asks on that, what about Hoyrig v'Reveh? What about the murderer or the person being Reveh? What do we say in such a situation? So the Gemara ultimately schizes from its original pshat and says that the Horog and the Hoyrig can never part of the equation. They're never considered Edom. Why they're not considered Edom? Because the pasuk itself, Ishnaim Edom Yokum Davar, says Rashi Yokum Davar Ksiv B'Haikra. This pasuk which we learn from that, Shasan the Kulam Kishnaim the Hainu Edom, that we learn that even Mea Edom are considered one set of Edom, and they all need to be kosher Edom, is only talking about. It says Yokum Davar. So that's been Mekayim Davar, the people who be Mekayim, Avaloi Ba'oisei Davar, not the people who are actually involved in the story. Okay, so that's the shit of Rabbi Yossi. Finally, and here too, the capital seems to be a mistake. I think the Maram Taka changes the girsa. Yeah, but in front of us we have Rabbi Yossi. It's not going on Rabbi Yossi, but it's going on the Hemshech, and it's going on Rabbi. Rabbi says that the distinction is not between din imamnis and din nefashos. That's not how we decide whether the extra Edom can cause a problem or not, but rather it depends whether hisru or loy hisru. So the Gemara asks the kasha, the Gemara asks the question, Heichi Amrinanu, what do we say to them? And here I'm going to see Rashi straight away. Heichi Amrinanu, what do we say to who? Says Rashi, Lekarav apostle lemivdekinu im mitchila le'edus niskavna. What do we say to the apostle or to the karav, to the relative of the, right? To check if his taka being mechavan to be an aid or not. And first glance, this is difficult. We don't understand what the Gemara is saying. What do you mean, Heichamin? The Mishnah says that the determining factor is whether they were master or not, whether they warned or not. So one way of explaining this Gemara is the way Tosfos learns that now the Gemara is going from din in nefashos to din in mominus. Taka by din in nefashos, we know whether they're Edom or not, dependent on whether they warned or not. But by din mominus, where there's no hasra shayach, how do we know? So on that, the Gemara is saying, "Hey Chiyamrinu." That's one way of learning. Alternatively, the Gemara, when it said "Bisman Shehishublan," was just giving me an example. The Nekuda and Rashi's Miramas, by the way, in his words, where he says "Niskavnu lahad," he keeps on saying "Niskavnu lahad," meaning to say that the mission is talking about when they're masra, then for sure they're Niskavnu lahad. What happens if they're not masra? Because we don't need both Eidim to be masra. It could be a third person being masra. It could be, he says, even if the Nera could be masra, it could also work. But either way, what happens if they're not masra? How do we know if they're Eidim? In other words, there's other ways of establishing whether they're niskavnu lahad or not. That's the determining factor according to Rabbi. Are they niskavnu lahad or not? So by din in nefashas, we have a way. By Asra, by din in mamnis, we don't have a way. And even by din in nefashas, if they weren't masra, we still might want to know whether they had intention to be made or they just happened to be watching the scene. So the Gemara asks, hey, what do we say to them, right? You look, see, Tosis says, "Koy adin imamnes." Bishlem adin nefashas. Like Kosh hey coming in the next anonym Hisru by Hakar v'Apostolim la. Elapar within imamnes like Asra. Hey, what do we say in order to see what they're? In other words, in situations where we don't know whether they are niskavnu lahad or not. This is what we say to them. We say to the Edom, "Lemechsi asisu oy lasudi asisu." Did you come just to see what's going on? Or to actually be made. If the Edom say that we came in order to testify, in order to be made, then then taka, if one of them is found the car of apostle, so the Edom is taka bottle. But if they just say that we were just at the crime just to see what was going on, then we applied the svara ma yasu shnei achim shara be'echad shargis hanefesh. The fact that someone's present can't ruin things because ma yasu shnei achim. What are you going to do in a situation where there's two brothers who happen to be at a crime, and one person is killing the other person, and just the fact that they're there and they're car of one to the other and they're all aided by virtue of being there, you're not going to be able to kill somebody. Alamai, they have to be niskavnu lahad, and only if niskavnu lahad. And over here we're saying, how do we know if niskavnu lahad? If they say la sudi asisa, that we came to testify. Let's see Rashi. There's no Rashi. Okay, so the Gemara just concludes Itmar Amr B'Yehuda Mashmul Halach Rabbi Yosi Rav Nachman Halach Rabbi. There's a machlokes Hamiroim whether Halach is like Rabbi Yosi, that the difference whether we say Nimtza Achem and Karev Apostles is dependent on whether it's din in mamnus or din in nefashis. Like Rabbi Yosi, that's Rabbi Yehuda Mashmul says Halach Rabbi Yosi. Rav Nachman says Halacha Rabbi. Halach is like Rabbi that. Halach is like Rabbi that it all depends whether niskavnu lahad or not. If niskavnu lahad, if they had intention to be made, so then they are taka considered Eidim, and they are Nimsachem and Karv Apostle like Dusim Taylor. But if not, then if it's just Lemechzel Sisu, so then we say it doesn't make a difference that Din Imam is Din and Farshas according to Rabbi. It's all dependent on whether Niskavnu Lahad, and if Loi Niskavnu Lahad, and they just happen to be present at the scene and they happen to see, then Nimsachem and Karv Apostle is not going to be a Dusim Taylor. It's a short Amot, so I guess we'll stop over here.